every ethnicity, race, gender, religion. They got their kids here. And then afterwards, as soon as the sun goes down, you've got these guys from Antifa and certain elements of Black Lives Matter, the cultural Marxist over there, that are literally trying to single people out, beat them up. Actually, some of them going in MAGA gear to let people feel that they're safe with other MAGA people and then attack them. You're a guy that does this for a living. How does it strike you what's going on here in America's streets?
Well, my emotional response was rage. I saw a bunch of cowards in their behavior. I saw individuals taking advantage of the fact they were outnumbering people. It looked like a bunch of hyenas attacking a lion. I saw, a lot of punches thrown from behind people's backs, not even having the courage or the bravado or the honor to stand their enemy eye to eye and face them in a way that I would be accustomed to and what I would consider at least respectable in any kind of dispute. It was upsetting. And, the part that really upset me also is that I've been told now for the last couple of months that, that social media is distorting my view, that, just listen to, the legitimate established journalists and mainstream media, and we will, tell you the truth. Well, until my friend Luke and Chris sent me these videos and brought it to my attention on Twitter, I hadn't even noticed that this was going on. So here I'm sitting there going, wow, how come I'm just new to this and finding out about this when, I'm always every morning, every evening in between practice, I'm constantly going through the different news channels on my phone, and no one's talking about this. No one brought it to my attention. And I thought that was also more insult to injury.
Why do you think the mainstream media is not covering this? Because you're correct, particularly at this parade, after this march the other day, which was really this massive outpouring, and it couldn't have been more positive. It was almost joyous. And these are people that are hunkered down for the fight, not to let this election be stolen. And what happened in D.C. was actually more brutal than I think even social media is showing. But why do you think the mainstream media doesn't have the respect for folks like yourselves and others who are not totally politicized and certainly not part of the partisan faction that supports President Trump? Why do you think they don't want folks like you to see this information?
Well, I think that because it'll obviously persuade me and show me the truth of the matter. That's like, hey, you guys are screaming oppression. We're victims. We're being discriminated against. And then I watch this video. I'm like, wow, you oppressed individuals. There's 8 of you beating up on one guy who's holding a flag, who's maybe has an idealist or ideology that's different than yours, and you're going to respond through not only just being violent, but I mean, for no other better word, but just you're a bully. You're trying to jump someone from behind in a group. I mean, you can see here in the picture, what chance does this individual have against, it appears to be 7 or 8 different guys attacking him, all wearing masks because they're afraid to show who they are, and attacking a guy like that. It just, it definitely brought a knee-jerk response for me. And I feel that it really was discouraging also to see that, the police officers who are supposed to be the reason why we don't want to defund the police is for these exact reasons, because we've expected there. It made me realize that, I get now why the left wants to defund the police, because if left to run on the streets, I see who's doing what.
When you first came out and just started talking about this, what was the immediate response you got from the Twitterverse and from others on social media? What was because you're not like, was it Masvidal and Covington? There's a faction in the UFC and others of the Ultimate Fighters, and President Trump's been a big supporter. He knows the owner. He's gone to a bunch of matches. He's been very out front about that. And there's also a big element of your community, of your fan base, and of obviously some of the fighters that are among the hardest core loyalists to President Trump. And you're just a guy out there, you're a fighter, but you're just kind of your average citizen. When you first started doing this, what was the blowback that you got?
No, it's strange because most of my friends and family know that I'm pretty middle of the lane kind of guy. There's some times I really like and I agree with what Trump has done in the Republican Party and Mitch McConnell. And there are times where I'm not so happy with situations, and back and forth. So it's really hard for me to stake my flag and just, no matter what, I'm going to take this side, right or wrong. But I feel that the reason why it draws our attention, because if you think of a situation where it's individuals that are taken advantage of and being beat down like that, it creates it to where the warrior type mindset of the guys that are in the UFC, the guys that are warriors, that we work hard for what we have. We don't look for people to give us handouts. Everything in our DNA says I will drag myself up and I'll fight hard. So when we see situations like that, it causes you to, someone like myself who's been pretty neutral back and forth, it's hard for me not to jump completely on the conservative side and go, hey, you know what? Wrong is wrong and this is wrong.
Would you have any guidance? Look, people look up to you as a warrior. Would you have any guidance to basically the average man or woman out there, the father and mother, as they go to these parades? There'll be, I think, some in Georgia this weekend. There may be some in Lansing, Michigan next week. I think President Trump's going to go on the road. And there's going to be more rallies where President Trump is not there. What advice do you just have to the basic mom and dad out there that are going to go rally, maybe take their kids or just go with a group of friends? What would you tell them? How would you tell them to behave?
Well, if I had a time machine and I can go back 5 years, I would tell them, hey, you guys need to train, learn how to protect yourself, and realize that there are people that are going to try to take advantage of you and what we're seeing in these videos. But for the most part now, with short notice, I would say, look, don't bring your children with you. Go into a situation knowing that you are very high likelihood of being accosted, that you're going to be attacked. Don't have your kids. You still got to stand up for what you believe in. You're still going to have to fight. That's just the nature of the beast. You're not going to be able to sit at home and put our tail between our legs. But going out there, if I know I'm going to be in a situation that's not desirable, I'm going to be in a confrontation, I think I'm not going to bring my children. My wife's meaner than I am, so she can come along. But for the most part, I would try to just limit my, any kind of injuries to my family.
What about the training though? What do you recommend to people that want to say, "Hey, I'm gonna be in these situations"? And because look, this is not going to get easier. We metaphorically talk about, hey, putting heads on pikes as figures of speech, stuff like that. But we've been the one shows that's gone out of its way to say, we don't want violence and never want violence. But people have to understand, if you're going to go out and do these demonstrations in the years to come, this is not going to go away. You see what's happening in Michigan, even with a state senator trying to get on a plane. He's surrounded by people. What would you recommend people do about getting into a training program?
I think there's just that. MMA now has shown how effective those arts are. Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, all combined in one. It's a great way to train your mind, your spirit, make you a better person. And it gives you tools on how to deal with a situation when you're in an unarmed combative. And on top of that, hey, I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. I'm not trying to, incite any kind of violence, but I mean that's what it's for, is to protect yourself, protect your ideals, and, become very accustomed with how to use a weapon, because that's, I feel as the head of the household, that's my responsibility to protect my family and be that, the sheepdog. And that's the situation I think that people have to realize that you're in now. So far I just want to hear and have a conversation. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing peaceful protesters because they're holding a flag that upset somebody being attacked. Because maybe their rhetoric you don't agree with, now you're responding with physical violence. So be prepared for physical violence and realize that that's now the world that we're entering into.
Frank, last thing, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on in this time where we're going through all the mathematics and the legal and everything like that, I think is very important. Candace Owens, who I think the world of, went after Vogue magazine, I think for the first time in its 127 year, American Vogue, I think it is, for the first time, I believe it's 127 years, 147 years, had a man on its cover, a man in quotes, had Harry Styles on his cover, and I think in the photo shoot he's wearing a dress for the bulk of the photos. And Candace Owens went after it and specifically said, "This is one of the central problems we have today is the raising of young men to actually be men." And I thought it'd be a perfect question for you. What do you think we stand? Is Candace Owens right? Is one of the problems we have in modern society is a loss of manliness?
Absolutely. I'm being told that masculinity is toxic. And I like, there's actually a very good PragerU video on toxic masculinity. And I think my time here is short, but anybody worth watching, worth the time, please click on that. It explains it in a nutshell. And now, and look, I'm sympathetic towards anybody that has different issues of identity. Hey, look, we're all in this together. We'll help each other out. But the lines now are being so muddled that it's so confusing that it's even unfair. I feel that, for example, I just read the other night that the gymnastics, American gymnastics, in the U.S. is allowing now people to identify with whatever gender they want to identify with, and that's who they compete with. So basically, I can now go out to an event and say, hey, I'm a woman, and I'm going to compete with, the females. And as an athlete and the father of a female fighter, my daughter is a very elite athlete, but there's still a reason why I have her fight with other women and don't have her. I would be appalled at the situation where, like, well, this guy, he now is a woman, it's a her, and she's identifying in this line, so she's now available to fight your daughter. I'll be like, no, that's never going to happen. That's crazy. How are we even having this conversation? I feel like this is the Twilight Zone.
Frank, how do people get more access, particularly to how they can get into a training program and also your podcast, social media? How do people get access to you?
Well, I do a podcast. We were doing it weekly, but my podcast partner is a little on the liberal side, and so we haven't been able to get together as much as I'd like to. But I have been doing my own things also on my Facebook page, on my fan page at the Frank Mir, which you can follow me at the Frank Mir, both Instagram and Twitter. But I do a Mind of Mir, where I sit down and talk a little bit about martial arts, also my lifestyle, my philosophy on how I approach things, which is, like, for example, there's the old saying that it's much better to be a warrior in a garden than to be a gardener during a war. And I feel like that's something people should take to heart now and realize that's the situation we're in. I don't expect for war, but through my training and through looking, anybody at home can find a local gym. If you hit me up on Instagram, I can usually connect people with different coaches and try to, fit what you're looking for. But everybody should be training and preparing. And hopefully we never need it. That's kind of the key of martial arts. Learn how to fight and hope that you never have to. But it's looking less and less that way as the days go on.